the hand-foot mouth, so you get your blisters on your hands and in your throat and on your feet. If I was smarter, maybe would have pulled out. But I was playing so good, I felt like if I could knock it out quickly and just get through the first couple rounds, I still have a chance.
Scottie Scheffler turned down an interview request last Thursday. He said just 2 words: "I'm sick." Nothing else. No explanation, no details. Golf fans didn't find out what that meant for 4 more days. I'm not telling you the diagnosis yet. Here's what I can tell you instead. Whatever it was, it got bad enough that people close to Scheffler pushed him to withdraw completely. He refused. And there's a second thing nobody's talking about yet, a number buried in his stats from that week that explains exactly how much this illness cost him, even while he kept winning. I'm holding that back too. Stick around, because heading into the biggest event of the season, there's a real question nobody can answer yet. Is he actually better? And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that question matters more than it sounds. Let's go back to the beginning, because the timing here is almost cruel. 8 days before any of this, Scheffler obliterated the field at the FedEx St. Jude Championship. He won by 8 full shots, the biggest blowout win on tour all season, total domination. Then, the very next night, everything fell apart. Remember what he refused to explain on Thursday? Here's the answer. Scheffler had hand, foot, and mouth disease. Yes, that illness, the one most people associate with toddlers and daycare centers, not the best golfer alive. It's a viral infection that spreads easily through close contact, and adults usually catch it from infected kids. It hit him Monday night, one day after his biggest win of the year. Blisters showed up on his hands. Blisters showed up on his feet. Blisters showed up in his throat too. There's no actual cure for it either. Doctors can only treat the symptoms and wait it out, which meant Scheffler had no real shortcut available, just 4 brutal rounds to play through. Scheffler himself had a theory about the timing, and it's oddly specific. He said his body basically crashed right after the adrenaline from that Memphis win wore off. Playing really good golf and you come out of the heat and get a little adrenaline, sometimes your body kinda crashes, he explained. Then it hit me pretty good all week. An 8-shot win, the biggest of his career, may have been the exact thing that let his immune system finally drop its guard. Think about what that means for a professional golfer. Grip pressure is everything in this sport, and Scheffler said it himself. Just gripping a golf club became genuinely painful. Not difficult, painful. To start the week, it was pretty painful to grip the club, he told reporters afterward.
To start the week, it was pretty painful to grip the club, but if I was smarter, maybe would have pulled out.
Here's where it gets genuinely dramatic. People around Scheffler urged him to pull out entirely, rest up, and heal properly ahead of the real prize, the Tour Championship. He refused outright. "I've never been one to ever pull out of a tournament, especially in the middle of it," he said. "That's really frustrating for me." He even reflected on the decision afterward, with unusual honesty for an athlete. "I think that's part of my stubbornness, probably," Scheffler admitted. "That's probably a strength of mine and a weakness at times." Frustrating for him, terrifying for anyone chasing him in the standings, because even sick, even in real pain, Scheffler still finished the tournament standing. He opened with a rough 2 over 72, understandable given the circumstances. Then something clicked. 3 straight rounds in the 60s followed, 65, 68, and 68. He clawed his way to 7 under for the week, tied for 12th place. For almost any other golfer, a top 15 finish is a great week. For Scottie Scheffler, fresh off an 8-shot demolition just 8 days earlier, it looked almost pedestrian by comparison. It wasn't pedestrian at all. It was a sick man somehow still beating most of the best golfers alive. Now remember that number I teased at the start of this video, the one buried in his stats? Here it is. Scheffler ranked just 31st in the entire field for strokes gained approach that week. 31st. For context, that's usually the exact statistic where Scheffler dominates the entire sport, week after week, better than literally anyone else alive. An illness most people shake off in a few days at home was quietly wrecking the single sharpest part of his golf game, in real time, on the biggest stage of the season. There's a small moment buried in his press conference that says more than any stat could, though. On the 18th green after his final round, Scheffler caught himself right before shaking hands with playing partner Cameron Young. He stopped himself just in time. I would have felt really bad, he admitted, half laughing about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I almost forgot. A tiny detail, but it tells you exactly how much this illness had consumed his entire week, to the point where basic tournament etiquette almost slipped his mind entirely. So now, back to the question from the start. Is he actually better? Here's what we actually know. Scheffler says he's healing and his hands feel normal again, but his throat is still bothering him, in his own words. Pretty good. Not fully recovered, not fully back to normal, heading into the single biggest, highest pressure week of the entire PGA Tour season. And here's the part that makes this whole situation even more complicated. Scheffler enters the Tour Championship as the FedExCup points leader for the 5th straight year running. 5 years at number 1. That sounds like total dominance, and in a lot of ways, it is. But the format changed this year. There's no more staggered scoring, no head start for the top seed like in previous seasons. Every single player at East Lake starts even, all 30 of them on a completely level scoreboard. Scheffler's advantage isn't built into the scoreboard anymore. It has to come entirely from how he plays this week. Blisters, sore throat, and all, the exact same conditions every other golfer in the field is facing, minus the illness he's still shaking off. Zoom out to the full season, and Scheffler's illness becomes even harder to square with everything else he's done in 2026. He enters East Lake with 2 wins already banked and 12 top 10 finishes across the year, numbers most golfers would consider a career-best season on their own. That's the version of Scheffler that's been terrorizing the PGA Tour since January, and it's the same version that spent last week wincing every time he gripped an iron. There's also real history working against him here, strange as that sounds for someone this dominant. Despite 4 previous appearances near the very top of the FedExCup standings, Scheffler has only actually won the Tour Championship once, back in 2024. Meanwhile, Rory McIlroy is chasing a record 4th title at East Lake this week, a number that would put him in territory Scheffler himself hasn't come close to touching yet. The golf world, for what it's worth, still isn't betting against him. Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chambly said plainly this week that Scheffler is miles ahead of the field in the Player of the Year conversation, illness and all. That's the strange contradiction sitting at the center of this entire story. Everyone agrees Scheffler is still the best player alive right now. Nobody actually knows if his body has fully caught up to that reputation yet. So what actually happens this week at East Lake? Nobody knows for certain, and that's exactly what makes it worth watching. Scheffler heads into the season's biggest event, technically at less than full health, by his own public admission just days ago. He's also, by nearly every measure that matters, still the most dominant golfer on the planet. Those two facts don't usually exist together. This week, for Scottie Scheffler, they do. What do you think? Does a still recovering Scheffler walk away with the FedExCup purely on talent alone? Or does this lingering illness finally catch up to him on the 1 week he genuinely can't afford it to? Drop your prediction in the comments, because after watching him fight through blisters just to finish 7 under last week, I wouldn't bet against him. But I also wouldn't call it a sure thing anymore either. Subscribe now, because East Lake decides the entire season this week, and if Scheffler's health becomes a real factor on Sunday, you're not going to want to miss how this story actually ends.